to be educated, but I'm so frustrated. Hello to my loneliness. I guess that ignorance is bliss. Take me back to before the new. Rewind, take it out of cue. Innocence can be a young man's game. Signed up for the hall of shame. I wish I knew.
Let's talk about the coup in Niger. The military-led and people-supported coup that removed President Mohamed Bazoum has Europe shook and the United States seriously worried. Did you know that France could possibly go broke from Niger's decision to kick them out? To give context to the reason why African nations are finally kicking France out of their affairs, take a listen to this clip.
As if it wasn't bad enough that we were divided up into the tiny little countries that we are today. The gift that Berlin Conference gave us. One other thing that France did between 1958 and 1961 in the name of giving us our independence as African countries. France forced the Francophone, and I hate that terminology. There is no such thing as Francophone, Anglophone. They made it up. But for the purposes of communication, I will use that. 14 of those countries, they said, in order for you to get your independence from us, you must sign this document. You thought they could have found a better name for the document. The document was called the Pact for the Continuation. I repeat, the Pact for the Continuation of Colonization. We are talking about giving you independence, but sign this pact for the continuation of colonization in a different format. And I'm going to highlight some of those issues that they said you must agree to if you are going to be independent. Hello. Maybe we need to redefine the meaning of independence for the French. First, France said, you see, you monkeys, you don't know how to manage your money. We're going to demand that you deposit 85% of your bank reserves with the French Minister of Finance. Under the French Central Bank, under the control of the French Minister of Finance. France is then going to take your 85% bank deposits from each and every one of you. Deposit those funds in the French stock market under the French name. And you may or may not know the returns. Today, as we speak, the latest figures are saying for every 14 billion that France invests in the stock market from Africa, they are realizing upwards of 300 billion in return. Every year, year in, year out, because of these deposits from the African countries, France is taking out of Africa over $500 billion. Now figure it out. For every 14 billion, the returns on the investment are over 300 billion, and they are taking over 500 billion. So in actuality, France is taking out of Africa trillions of dollars year in and year out. From us poor people, Africans. Back to the pact. So should you want to access some of your money that you have deposited with France, you have to submit your country's financial returns. And if approved, you get to get it as a loan. You can only access up to 20% of your money year in, year out as a loan at commercial interest rates. Your own money. As if that was not enough. They said all your minerals discovered, yet to be discovered, all your oil discovered, yet to be discovered. France and French companies have the first right of refusal. If there's anything left over that the French companies do not want, your people might have. To this day. They said you will only use the currency that we created for you because you're special Africans. We call it the CFA. There was the Central African CFA and the Western African CFA, same animal. And that France is the only one that can print it for you. 1958. Fast forward, they're still printing it for us. And if you start misbehaving, they just stop printing your money, and your country's in trouble. They also said your language of instruction shall be French, whether you like it or not. That France will have military presence in your country, that your military can only be trained by France, that you can only buy military equipment from France, that you cannot have any military alliance with your neighbor, and that in the event of war, your allegiance is only to France. And furthermore, because they have military presence in your country, they can invade you without notice should they feel that the interests of France in your country are being violated.
Teach, sister, teach. Speak on, sister.
Fast forward, 2019, nothing has changed. The same people who have the audacity to tell us that we are poor countries, they are taking trillions out of Africa every year. And then one might say, why is it that African leaders haven't done anything about this deplorable situation? Well, let me tell you, my brother and sister, they have tried. Documented to this day, 22 coups where leaders were assassinated. France had something to do with it. The first 7, when they decided they were pulling out of the CFA and that they're going to print their own money, they were assassinated. Every time an African leader has tried to do what's best for their country, they were assassinated. Majority of them aided by France. It's a known fact. And then others, they were just mercenaries who felt that when there was a natural resource discovered in one country, they wanted to create a coup. So while the country is thrown into a civil war, they're siphoning the natural resource. They don't do coups anymore. They simply create instability. So when you hear of an instability in an African country, ask yourself, what is really going on? Because what they are telling you is really going on is just a shiny object. The real issue is over here. And you need to stop before you start being used as an instrument of your own self-destruction.
The United States just went into freak-out mode over the weekend. I spoke to sources in Washington who told me this is no joke. This is a major emergency. Africa, countries rising up, saying, get the heck out of our countries. Stop stealing our minerals. Many of our Western leaders are freaking out because stuff is about to hit the fan. The dominoes are starting to fall. This weekend, we saw dramatic developments all across Africa. Russian flags being raised in the air throughout the continent. First to Niger, the country that started it all. Russian flags everywhere. And according to France 24 news service, the government of Niger has now signed a contract with the Russian Wagner Group for security. Yes, Wagner forces in Africa going to protect Niger. And they need it because the coup in Niger has entered the point of no return. The people rising up against French and United States influence. The Western powers that have controlled Niger for decades are being pushed out. And this weekend, the military leaders now say that Niger will no longer be a European colony. We're done with that. And they've demanded that all French soldiers and any United States influence get out now or face the consequences. Tens of thousands of people marched in Niger this weekend celebrating their independence and shouting no to foreign military bases, no to poverty, no to the West stealing their uranium, their phosphate, their gold, and other minerals. Get out now. Other African nations now showing their support for Niger and starting to say the very same thing. Get out of our country. This weekend, the people in Senegal rising up against Western colonial governments controlling their country. Yes, the CIA, MI6, other Western intelligence services are doing whatever they can right now to hold on to power in these countries with their puppet governments. That's why you saw crazy Victoria Nuland, who of course helped create the coup and the overthrow of the Ukrainian government, is now running into crazy mode, trying to see what she can do in Africa. Colonel Douglas McGregor says the people who've had their minerals stolen for years in that country are saying, enough is enough. Get out of my country.
The Africans are fed up with it. And so this is an example in Niger where a supposedly U.S.-backed government with a U.S. trained military, suddenly turned around and said, I think all of you white people need to get out of here. We've had it with you. Go away. Go, Europeans leave.
Again, we'll get to the uranium and the gold part of this story in a minute, which is arguably the most important part of this story, especially if you're an investor. But first, the story that no one's talking about is the massive natural gas pipeline that is nearly set to go online. Now, it starts in Nigeria, and it flows up through Niger on its way into Europe. Chevron and the United States have already invested $13 billion into this. And after the Nord Stream pipeline destruction, Chevron stepped up production to get this pipeline up and running. And now the people of Niger are saying, wait a second, why are we going to allow a pipeline to flow right through our own country into Europe? You are doing nothing for us, and yet you continue to steal from us. So sorry, no more pipeline. This is why Europe is terrified this morning. And it was always going to be a very cold and dreary winter because of the natural gas destruction of the Nord Stream pipeline. This winter could be even worse now if this pipeline is not allowed to go into action in Africa. Niger is saying, sorry, you're not going to use our country to transport your natural gas into Europe. Get out of here. Get out now. Europe is facing catastrophe with no Nord Stream pipeline coming from Russia. The African pipeline was their salvation. And then add into it uranium and Europe's nuclear power. The United States gets over 50% of its uranium from Russia. Despite all the sanctions of the United States has placed on Russia, they left uranium off the list. Why? Because the United States is so heavily dependent on Russia for uranium that Putin could literally flip the switch and literally destroy the American economy by turning off the lights. Think about that for a minute. They sanctioned the hell out of Russia for everything else. But, oh, we need your uranium, so we won't sanction that. Just keep sending it to us. They could turn off the lights with a flip of a switch. And now Niger, the French, the United States have essentially been stealing uranium from these African countries for decades. And again, these countries are saying enough is enough. We are sovereign countries here in Niger, in Senegal, and in Guinea, and we are going to keep our own minerals, make our own decisions. And Russia is giving them that option. They had the big African summit in St. Petersburg last week. And Vladimir Putin and Russia said, we want you to keep your own sovereignty. Oh, and by the way, we are also going to wipe away all of the debt that you owe us. Billions of dollars wiped away. Think about that for a second. We're not going to steal from you. You can have your sovereignty, and we're going to wipe away your debt. Sounds like an attractive proposition for some of these countries, right? Not a slave to the West any longer. Listen to RT's Africa Bureau Chief Musa Ibrahim explain how the people of Africa want to gain back their wealth, their minerals, stop giving it away to America and Europe.
What people want is to gain back their wealth, back their uranium, their gold, their iron, their phosphate, their oil, their gas. And this scares the West because this means the true democracy will take place in Africa when people actually own their own land and the wealth of Africa does not go untaxed, unsupervised from the mines in Niger to the banks of Paris and the financial sector in Britain.
He's right. Niger's coup isn't a singular event, but it's actually a larger narrative right now and a pushback against Western neocolonialism. Africans seeking to regain their national sovereignty. Yes, they might be independent, but with a U.S. military base and French military bases here stealing all of our minerals, how exactly are we sovereign? Imagine if China did that to the United States. Oh yeah, we're America, we're a sovereign nation. But here's Russia and China literally building military bases in our own country. Would we stand for it? No. Africa saying, hey, we are rich in uranium, but we don't get to benefit from the wealth of this mineral because you steal it from us. So guess what? We are going to enrich our own uranium, and then we'll sell it to you, and you'll pay us a fair market price for it. No more theft. Africa is in the middle of a revolution.
The situation is intense, and as of now, Niger has no plans to reinstate the ousted president and have brought charges of treason against him.
It comes as supporters of the coup gathered in Niamey to call for the departure of what they called foreign forces, some waving Russian flags and calling for strengthened ties with Mali and Burkina Faso. Foreign forces that are with us, the foreign bases, the people who are squandering must leave us, he says. Niger alone.
Notre armée est une
Our
armée
army is an
de
army of
référence
reference that
qui a
made
fait la
Niger
fierté du
proud in
Niger
the First
à
Gulf
la
War, that
première
made
guerre du Golfe,
Niger proud
qui a
in the
fait la
First
fierté du
Rebellion,
Niger à
the
la
Second
première
Rebellion,
rébellion,
and
la
in the
deuxième
sub-region
rébellion. Et
everywhere.
dans
We
la
are
sous-région,
proud.
partout,
This
nous
army
sommes
is a
une
source
fierté,
of
cette armée,
pride.
elle est une fierté.
Nous souhaitons qu'il y ait
We want them to improve cooperation ties with Mali and Burkina Faso, he says, with whom we share the same common enemy, to combat the terrorism raging in the Sahel. As demonstrators took to the streets, some burning French flags, the coup leaders announced the suspension of political party activities until further notice.
En tout état de cause, le gouvernement nigérien a réuni à ce jour les éléments nécessaires de preuve pour poursuivre devant les instances nationales et internationales compétentes le président déchu et ses complices locaux et étrangers pour haute trahison et atteinte à la sûreté intérieure et extérieure du Niger suite à ses échanges avec les nationaux, des chefs d'État étrangers et des responsables d'organisations internationales.
Also, reportedly, the military of Niger has contracted the services of the Vonnier Group that played a successful part in defeating Ukraine. Niger is ready to step up and control its destiny, allowing its citizens to profit from the wealth of its sovereign land. Tell me what you think in the comments below, and make sure to like, share, and subscribe.